Has an ex popped back into your life, leaving you confused and wondering what to do? Should you take them back? That's what we're getting into in today's video, how to decide whether or not going back to an ex is right for you. Let's get into it. Now, did they dump you or did you dump them? If they dumped you, I bet you probably do want to reconcile. But before you go jumping in head first, I do want you to think about some of the things that we're covering in this video. But if you were the one who did the dumping, you're going to really want to dive into what I'm about to cover as well. First, I want you to think about why the breakup happened. Whether you did the dumping or whether they did, doesn't matter. Why did it happen? Were you arguing all the time? Were there some philosophical differences in your core values? Was there cheating involved? What were the reasons that led to the breakup? And why, if you do indeed reconcile, why would that be different now? What has changed either in you or in them, or ideally with both of you? Piggybacking on that, I also want you to think about what kind of personal growth work you have done since the breakup and what kind of personal growth work have they done. Ideally, you both would have done some soul searching, some reflection, maybe some therapy, and maybe doing some things to improve your overall outlook and mindset and own feelings of self-worth and knowing what you want out of a relationship. Next, I want you to look at your ex and try and figure out why they want to reconcile. Do they desperately love you and they can't envision a life without you? Are they codependent and they just don't like being alone? Because that's not a good reason. What are their reasons for wanting to reconcile? Get to the real root issue there to help you decide. And even if both of you have done some work leading up to this possible reconciliation, are you both willing to continue doing the work to really make the relationship work this time around? That might include going to therapy together, especially if there were a lot of issues. And what about your overall philosophy on life and relationships? What if you're into monogamy and your ex doesn't believe in monogamy? I've been in that boat, and you can make it work if both people are willing to compromise. But is that the case? Are you both willing to compromise if indeed you do have differing values in that way? Another thing that often gets in the way of reconciliation is that one or maybe both of you may have trash talked the other to your family and friends. And sometimes ego prevents us from going back to those people and saying, well, you know what, maybe I was a little harsh there, but I'm actually going to get back together again with them. A lot of the time, ego gets in the way of us doing that, which sucks. So if you have trash talked your ex to your friends, or they have trash talked you to their family or friends, you are going to have to deal with that, and you should talk about that openly and honestly about how you're going to do that and when you're going to do that. Not to get too analytical here, but I would probably suggest that you make a pros and cons list of reconciling with your ex. What are the things that you think are going to be great about it? What are the things that give you pause or concern, or you think are actually going to be terrible about it? Make that list, write those down, or at least type it out so you can see it clearly and you can evaluate how they stack up against one another. But ultimately, this is not an analytical game. This is not a numbers game. You need to trust your gut. What does your intuition tell you about getting back together again with them? And does that tell you it's a good idea or not a good idea? You should listen to that and trust that and go with that. Now, I mentioned family and friends a second ago, and I don't want you to reach out to them for advice on this situation, especially if you did indeed trash talk your ex after the breakup. They're not going to be impartial. They're not going to give you impartial advice. They have your back ultimately, and they may have a very skewed perspective of this relationship and what it would look like if you did reconcile. So don't reach out to them for advice. It's just not going to be fair and impartial advice. Don't rush this decision either. Do communicate. Do let your ex know that you're considering this. Do give them a rough idea of when you might be able to make a decision by, but don't feel the need to rush into this. Your happiness and your well-being and your sense of self-esteem and self-worth is mission critical. And if there's any possibility that a reconciliation is going to damage those things, it is not the right decision for you. Have you made these choices? Have you taken an ex back, and was it worth it, or did it blow up in your face? Let me know in the comments, but for now, I'll see you in the next video.